got a license to talk.
Shocking. Positively shocking.
And the words are for your ears only.
I think you got the point.
Welcome to The Words Are Not Enough.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by Bond 25 delays? Have the latest reports of rewrites left you frustrated and confused? Well, never fear, because on episode 21 of The Words Are Not Enough, we're here to set the record straight. This week, we're sitting down with the playlist Rodrigo Perez to dig deep into his bombshell Bond 25 scoop. The answers you're looking for are coming your way now.
Yeah, baby!
What is up, everyone, and welcome to The Words Are Not Enough, our James Bond talk show where we talk about the latest and greatest surrounding our favorite super spy. I am one of your hosts, Griffin 008 Schiller, and I'm joined by two people this time around. But first of all, my lovely co-host, Mr. Brody 005 Saravelli. Brody, say hello to everyone.
How's it going, everyone? If I've offended you on Twitter, I apologize sincerely.
Yes, and we will. We're going to get into that because it would. There's been some things that have happened. Just nothing too crazy. But I do want to introduce our second guest, and our second guest is the editor-in-chief over at The Playlist, Mr. Rodrigo Perez. Thank you for joining us, Rodrigo. How is it going over there in New York?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on. Now, you might be wondering why we have Rodrigo on the show. And aside from being a great guy and super well-versed in the film worlds, he did actually recently break a scoop that has to deal with Bond 25, which we're going to be getting into a little bit later on.
Bond 25 news? I hadn't heard anything.
Really? You haven't?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
I hadn't heard a damn thing about that film.
Yeah, it's there's some news. Yeah, there's some news. We're just going to leave it at that. But without further ado, let's just jump into this because it's what everyone wants to hear us talk about. It's the thing that's taken Bond Twitter by storm, and it's time to spread the word. And the word is panic, according to some people. But anyways, we're going to start off here with our news segment, Tomorrow Never Lies. So an official announcement was made on Friday, February 15th, regarding a release date change for Bond 25. Producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson stated the following: "We are absolutely thrilled to be releasing Bond 25 on the 8th of April, 2020. So it would appear that Daniel Craig's fifth outing as Bond is getting pushed back a couple of months for reasons unknown, or so we thought at the time. While we don't specifically know the details regarding, Bond 25's production delay, it could be a myriad of things. A recent article, as we just previously mentioned, published by Rodrigo from The Playlist, may have shed some light on the situation. So we're just going to kind of give you an overview of the article, and then I'm going to toss it to Rodrigo to kind of elaborate on some things. So according to the article, sources close to the project have revealed that Scott Z. Burns, writer of The Bourne Ultimatum, Steven Soderbergh's Contagion, among other notable works, he has been hired to do a complete overhaul and rewrite the Bond 25 script by Neil Pervis and Robert Wade. Burns is currently in London, where he will spend about 4 weeks completing the script before production begins in April, which also corroborates with a tweet that I believe Steve Frosty Weintraub from Collider put out a couple of weeks ago when he ran into cinematographer Linus Sandgren and said that production was going to be started in April. So it seems that that is still true. Apparently, he's being paid an outrageous amount to, not Linus Sandgren, but Burns is being paid an outrageous amount to do all this. So Burns is no stranger to hopping onto projects this late in the game, and in fact, he's one of the industry's top emergency rescue script doctors. So this is, it's a shift, but it's not too bad so far. The article also sheds some light on Danny Boyle's departure, stating that there was likely some truth to Boyle and Craig clashing over killing Bond at the end of the film. Paul Haggis reportedly came in to do some rewrites. However, the article states that these are no longer being used. And so we just threw a whole bunch of information at you. We're going to break it down here. With this new slew of information, I'm going to pose the question to both of you, but starting with Rodrigo, is it time to hit the panic button yet on Bond 25?
Well, I am not I'm not a Bond head like you guys and your audience. But so I don't have the context for all this stuff in some regards. At the same time, I know that this sort of to me smells like a little bit of like what happened with Spectre. And I don't even remember the details of Spectre. As I'm sure as you guys did, I think there was again hiring some last minute rewrites, and I can't remember the names of the people, but Mendez going to someone else. But put it this way, like if you're about to shoot a movie in April and you're it's mid-February and you're supposed to start and you don't really have a script, and you're kind of starting over. Yeah, I mean, you need to kind of brace yourself, right? I mean, I don't care who you are, what project you are. If you're about, I don't know, let's say generously, let's even generously say 7. Well, I don't know the exact April date, so it could be mid-April, it could be end of April. But let's say generously, you got 8 weeks to write a screenplay and then start production. I don't know if that's panic, but it's sure not the optics. What are the optics on that? That's not the optimal way you make a film.
Right, right. Yeah.
And that goes for an indie movie. That goes for a blockbuster. That goes for anything.
Yeah, it's it kind of begs the question. I think you and I were talking about this a little bit, off, outside of this show. But we were talking about, was it a matter of them trying to meet a release date instead of, just scrapping everything, going back to square one after Boyle left, and then just kind of regrouping?
That's exactly it. I mean, but that's but anybody can tell you that. I mean, that's just how these people work and how all these things work. And especially for Bond, because the date was already pushed once and it's been years between the last one. So you don't need to be an expert to know that it's been years and they need to hit a release date. They need to, and this is what happens with a lot of these movies, not Bond, not anything. Studio movies find themselves in this position, and they wouldn't have been in this position if, Danny Boyle and the Broccoli's and MGM fell apart, because they would have had the time to have done what they were doing. Now they had a new compressed timeline because you got a new director, you're starting over, and then they did shift the release date, right? But I can't remember how much they did, but you put yourself in a new kind of situation, and even the day Cary Fukunaga starts and they change the release date, you sort of resetting the clock again and giving yourself that kind of timer. And it's like I just think that, like, regardless of Bond, if anyone, any Star Wars, even the Force Awakens had this issue. It's like, unfortunately, like, release dates dictate these things, and then like I said, I don't think you'd be here if Boyle stuck on, and you'd kind of be okay. But because you switch directors, and then it's like, oh, what are we going to do? What are we doing with this script? Are we using this old one? And then you got a new person, and you back the date that, I don't know what they do, 6 months. You're just compressing timelines, and you're creating a sense of urgency. And then, they probably should have taken care of this sooner. Yeah. But there was also extenuating circumstances, which I think I guess I'm hoping I articulated it, or maybe I was vague on purpose. Like, I've known that he's been being tapped to write this for months. I just hadn't written it yet. I was, it was the release date that really gave me the, like, okay, I got to do this now.
Yeah, for sure.
Gotcha. And so, I guess my question would be then, so he hasn't started writing just yet. He'll be starting soon.
He's probably starting. He's in London right now. Right.
So, is it possible that he's been talking to the Broccoli's for the last couple of months about this?
He totally has.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the timeline is still rushed, obviously. But I guess I think for a lot of people, it sort of seems as though he has only just been contacted now, and that rewrites are only starting now.
No.
Is
and
a far shorter timeline. Yeah.
Maybe it's a failure on my part, but
No, not at all.
I said it earlier in the article that, like, they wanted him to do this like months ago, and they tried to hire him. They were talking to him probably as long as back as at least December, and they wanted him to get him on board. But he just released a movie. He just put out the report and world premiered in January. So they're like, "Hey, can you come fix our Bond movie?" And he's like, "No, I'm in the editing room right now. I got a movie that I'm coming out with. I don't direct feature films all that often because I'm usually writing." I mean, this guy I think would like to be a filmmaker, but he's a fucking ace screenwriter, and everybody knows it. So people are always getting him to he's like one of the top fixers.
He's waiting for his big break, the same way that like Chris McQuarrie was able to sort of break into just directing.
Yeah, I think in some ways. I mean, if you look at this guy's career, like he was supposed to direct Side Effects. And then Soderbergh read it and went like, no, I can you give this to me? I really, really want it. Can you give it? No, I'm dead serious. That's exactly
both a compliment and a blow to the gut.
Yeah, right.
But this guy, so he's been, he's directed a bunch, but he hasn't directed a feature in a long, long time. And then, finally he's putting together this new one. It got a lot of critical acclaim at Sundance. But this is beforehand, right? So he's like working, like when you're like about to premiere a movie at Sundance, you're in the editing room to the last fucking second, making that movie as perfect as you possibly can. Right. So they were trying to get him to work on it. And I'm sure they sent him the script and he probably read it and he probably had some thoughts, but like, it's like I can't actually start working on this until like, I may have some ideas. I can get on the phone with you, but like I got to finish and like I got a world premiere. And, I think luckily for the Broccoli's and the Bond producers is the best case scenario. They really wanted him. And then his movie was a hit and was sold immediately. And so he's like, oh, my I don't need to worry about anything. I don't need to sweat about anything. My movie's sold. It was a huge critical success, and they're probably going to release it like as an awards movie in the fall. So like, so I can do what you want me to do now because I'm like, it's almost like I can take a breath and take a beat from the stress of like, well, how's my movie going to be received at Sundance? And it was received extremely well. And now he's got a minute. So
I guess if I was trying to put this into a timeline, I would say, I mean, and you can stop me if this doesn't sync up with what you've heard from your sources. But essentially would be that like Pervis and Wade originally wrote a script that the Broccolis sort of put aside when Boyle came on because Boyle wanted John Hodge to write his script. And then they had creative differences over what it seems to have been like killing Bond at the end, and they walk. And so the Broccolis go back to their Pervis and Wade script, but they know it needs work, so they reach out to Scott, and he basically says, I'm saying Scott like I know him personally. They reach out to Scott, and he basically says, I'm working on a film right now. Let me do this, and I'll see if I can come around to it. They discuss it a little bit, and then once his film debuts and gets sold and is successful, he sort of says, okay, now I'm willing to commit to this and I'm going to want a lot of money to do this. Does that sound right?
I don't think he needs to necessarily command a lot of money because I don't want to make it seem like this, like, he's like big, like these kinds of gigs, they pay fucking well.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like danger pay. Like, like if you're like a guy who works construction and your job is to doing like you're on the windows and you're washing the windows, you get danger on top of that because it's hazardous thing. So regardless of whether it's Scott or regardless if it's anyone in this business who does kind of like stuff like this, especially kind of last minute where like we really need you, we're on the ropes, that stuff, it costs. So he doesn't need to say, I'll do it, but only if you're going to give me like X, Y, and Z. Like
they're probably just offering it.
Right.
Exactly. They're like, we want you to do this, and we'll throw a lot of fucking money at you, so you won't say no.
Right.
That's par for the course. That's probably what exactly happened to him with the Bourne movies. He actually rewrote the Bourne Supremacy, and then he was uncredited on writing the Bourne Supremacy, and then they brought him on officially to write the third one after that had a lot of issues as well.
Mm-hmm. So basically what you're saying is that this project is in great hands right now.
I mean, he's a great fucking screenwriter, and he is one of those people. It's not just a great writer. He's one of those people like Tony Gilroy or Christopher McQuarrie, which I named because those three are essentially the top like fix-it script doctors in Hollywood. At least they're the ones, like, if you have the money and you're like, Lucasfilm, you call those guys. Like, all three of those guys worked on Rogue One at one point or another.
Gotcha. Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Like they called in the big guns and they threw a lot of fucking money at all of them. And then they, obviously Gilroy came back on board, but that's just basically how it works.
Right.
And, Burns is like, I think like a lot of these guys, like probably actually like McQuarrie and Gilroy, is that they're doctors in that way. That's why they call them doctors, because they can diagnose the problem. Like they're like, our script doesn't work. We don't know what it is. And they look at it and they read it and they go, oh, well, because on page 8, you do this. And on page 12, you know what I mean? Like they're surgeons. They can see the shit. They have like perspective, and they can see the body, and they go, oh, well, no wonder you're having this. You didn't notice this. The lung is whatever it is. And they can tell that when they read scripts, and then they go, this is what I would do to fix it. And then they go, great. We have no clue what we're fucking doing. Throw a lot of money at someone, and we hope that they can fix it. And this is not uncommon in Hollywood. This is how this shit works.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's what gives me the most confidence with this, is that when you compare this to, say, Spectre, where the rewrites were constant, like because Spectre got rewritten so many times, and you read through those Sony emails, and it is just like the studios having a say and everyone's having a say, which happens with these kind of films. But what bothered me about that rewrite was that it was basically it wasn't so much a doctoring quote unquote of the script. It was more, we have a script, but we need more punchy moments. So we'll bring Pervis and Wade because they're reliable people back in, and we'll get them to add like quote unquote Bondian moments, which is fine. But it didn't really address, because you look at like all the earlier drafts of Spectre, and they never really addressed any of the problems in Spectre that were apparent from the very first couple of drafts.
Right.
And so this at least gives me hope that they've got someone who is specifically there to identify problems and fix problems, rather than just rewrite it because they needed more excitement.
Well, that's what that's a problem with a producer. A producer is someone, like, if you've got a script and there's problems with it, and you do 9 drafts of it, and you paid all these people, and you haven't fixed those fundamental problems, you've got bad producers. And I can't speak to like who these people are or whatever. I'm just talking in general. That's something that you have to know. You have to be somewhat aware of what your problems are, diagnose them, and then get them to fix them. And if you can't figure it out, you got to hire someone who can, and then you got to get that person, and then you got to trust that person. You got to be like, what is my problem? The person will say, look, I'm a doctor. This is why you're ailing. And if you want me to fix this, I need to fix X, Y, and Z. And then you need to trust me when I do that. And there's probably a million situations in Hollywood where they found somebody, and this doctor absolutely diagnosed every single problem, identified it, and knew the cure. And that producer, when they got the script back, probably went, I don't know, I don't really like that. And they didn't trust them, and they got fucked up. So like it can kind of go a million ways. And then there's also, not every doctor knows everything, because no human being is perfect, right? And every single project is different, and and it's just a million ways to go. But like, yes, he's very good. He's very good at identifying problems. He is paid a lot of money by a lot of different people, and a lot of people come to him all the time because he's got that sharp mind that people like. Like Ridley Scott was one of the first people that he came to him, because you won't remember this, but when Ridley Scott's movie was first announced that he was doing Blade Runner 2049, or before it became Blade Runner 2049, because obviously like at this stage it was still Ridley Scott was going to direct it or whatever. Ridley was behind it, and he was the one getting it going. There was a report early on that said Scott was going to write it. That turned out incorrect, but it was on to something, because Ridley came to Scott C. Burns and said, I want to do this. Do you have ideas? Because that's a lot of the way these things work. Someone goes to someone that they admire, and they sort of pick their brain and see if that sparks an idea. And then if that, like, you can have a meeting or whatever, and shit, you could go to a meeting and someone go like, oh, fuck, actually, I do have a good idea. And that can be like, oh, great, you're writing it. You know what I mean? Like that can be, and then with that situation with Blade Runner, it actually was the opposite. Burns was like, I don't sort of see a real clear path here. I'm not a huge fan, but Scott, his reputation was such that Ridley Scott came to him and was like, you help me out here. So, yeah. Anyhow.
Well, and the other thing that's kind of interesting to me, regarding this whole like timeline thing was, like, I guess, and I'm not sure if you have any idea on the matter, but so they bring in someone like Cary Fukunaga, who's like very much like, he's a writer director. He's like I want my vision realized. Did they contact Burns before they brought in Fukunaga, or did they do that after they brought in Fukunaga?
After
they did that. Okay. So I guess the thing that's curious is, and he may have had a crack at it, but when you bring in someone like Fukunaga, it's just kind of curious as to why he maybe wasn't working with his own original idea. Because it seemed like after Boyle left, it was like, we're going to go back to this Pervis and Wade idea because it's all we got. So when you bring in someone...
you think someone like Fukunaga would be like, oh, I know, I got my own ideas and this is how I'm going to do it.
Right.
That I just don't know. But like, I mean, he is a smart guy. He's a good director. He's a good writer. He's written a lot of his own things. He always seems to have rewrites on projects that he works on, even if somebody else writes it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would have expected him to have done, something, but I don't have. I do know that Burns is writing something that's based off of a Pervis or Wade work, or at least that's what, that's what he was given to sort of like
build off of.
Yeah. And I'm trying to be careful here. I'm gonna speculate here.
Okay.
It is possible that Pervis and Wade, that he's building off of that, and he's not necessarily working from complete scratch.
Right.
That's how a lot of these things work.
Okay.
That was kind of the impression I got from your article, whether or not that was what you intended. Yeah. When I read it, it sort of seemed like, he's doing an overhaul, but he's working from the same pieces essentially. So my assumption was that everyone involved kind of likes the idea, but they don't like how it's been executed in this script, or they don't like every aspect of it.
Right.
And my assumption would be that when they were courting Cary Fukunaga, who is notoriously very picky when it comes to the projects he stays with, my assumption would be that they pitched him this idea and said, we've got a script right now, it's not finished, or it's not where we want it to be just yet, but here's the idea behind it. And he's like, I'm on board with that, let's take a look at it. And he probably worked along, he may have even conference called Burns at some point, who knows. But I feel like, I have a hard time imagining Cary Fukunaga just signed up for a movie where the script was garbage and he hated the idea. You know what I mean? He's just not that kind of filmmaker. He's notoriously picky when it comes to the things that he works on. So I don't know. That would be my speculation, I'd say.
I think that's accurate. I think he's a good director. He's a smart guy. He's not going to sign on to a piece of shit. If he didn't like it, he probably thought he had some of his own ideas. He probably got paid a lot of money. So that's probably a good thing, and figures that, between him and all these people working on it, they can, and based on the ideas of what they had with Boyle and the ideas, Pervis and Wade, that there's something here that he can make something of this. I don't think that if he didn't think that, he wouldn't have done it. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Who knows with some of these things, that there could be further fallout for all we know, right?
Right.
But that said, a couple of things. A couple of things could happen. Who knows? But I'm not a Svengali. I don't know the future. But, sometimes these maybe at the end of April they announce, or maybe in mid-April they announce that it's been pushed back further, the production date, but maybe not the start date, or maybe both. I don't know. Or maybe a whole, who knows,
Right.
Burns could be the greatest writer in the whole world and turn in the best script in 4 weeks, and maybe they don't like it for whatever reason. I don't know.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, these things can go. That's why sometimes when I talk to certain, not you guys obviously, but when I talk to certain people, they just don't think of I'm going to shade a little people who probably won't be listening, but there's a bunch of people I know are always talking about Gambit, and they're always like, "Oh, Gambit's ready to go. They got a script that's ready," and it's I've been talking about a start date, and they could start in March, and it's like, dude, you don't even have a fucking director yet. How do you live in the real world here? There's and then even if you do, you need prep time. There's just a zillion factors going on with films. Films are just incredibly tricky to make. There's a zillion of things that can go wrong. It's really, really hard even to make just a basic good film. So again, sort of speculating, they're shooting very soon. So my guess is a lot of the set pieces in this movie are already built and done, because if there's something completely new and invented and starting from scratch, and this production is not prepared for it, that's not going to happen in April unless that is maybe pushed, let's say it shoots to the end of June or something like that, then that whatever is scheduled to shoot then, and there's time to prep it. But my guess is there's going to be some building blocks that are going to be left, and there's going to be set pieces that are done, because that's how Hollywood works. That's how these things work. You cannot shoot if these guys don't know. Like if they receive a script, it's February 17th. Let's say they receive a script finally done. It's March 17th. If it's fucking completely brand new and nobody knows anything, there's absolutely no way that that's starting in April.
Right.
There's no human possible, Marvel, anybody, no one, a gigantic operation like that cannot. When you do these things, that's why it's called pre-production. You plan for these things, and you plan for them months in advance, and you know that you're doing the jumping over the car scene or whatever it is, and that's worked out in months in advance. It's pre-vised. You get stunt people who are doing it in advance. All the shit. There's one team working on that set piece. There's another team working on another set piece months in advance, and they're working out the logistics of it, how they're doing it. That's just how this shit works.
Yeah.
You know? You don't just like, oh yeah, I wrote in a gigantic plane scene and Bond or Mission Impossible. He's going to be on the wing, and he's going to do a backflip, and then he's going to parachute back into like MI headquarters or whatever. Like, no. If they read that and they wrote that and they said, we love it, we're going to do it, great, then that movie is being delayed, because you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like that's just how that shit works. So my guess to make their April start date, I'm going to guess that some of the building blocks are going to stay, just because that's just how these things work. And they're big ships. It's like, if you've ever worked at a big company, big companies move slow. Mm-hmm. It's the same kind of way. Like the Titanic doesn't turn quickly. And these productions are big fucking productions with a lot of fucking people on them. And they have a lot of meetings, and they go through everything. And it's like, you can't just like, we're doing this tomorrow. Like, it's like, no, there's like 50 people that need to be, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't. My guess is that's how it's going to work. And he's writing, I don't know, that's what I am assuming, because otherwise it's going to be hard to make that start date. And they pushed the start date once because it was supposed to start in March, and now it's April, and who says they can't do it again? Who knows, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it could definitely happen again, but the main thing is they're sorting all of their issues out, like you said, in pre-production before they even step foot on set, which is exactly what you want. They have to account for these sort of things. But also, you bring up a good point in that they're not completely starting from square one, because they've got, if this has been in the works for several months, and obviously we're just now hearing about it, we wouldn't be getting stuff from like the stunt coordinator practicing for certain sequences, putting stuff up on Instagram. We wouldn't be getting filming permits locked down in Norway, in Italy, in Greece, and Spain, all these places that they're supposed to film in. And even I think recently there was like a rumor, but I think it's been like semi-confirmed now, that they're going to be filming in Italy, and the filming portion of that is going to begin in April. So
was that confirmed? Who confirmed that?
It was basically, not confirmed, I guess I should say, but very heavily leaned into. But basically, production's going to start in April. It's looking like Italy is going to be one of the first places they shoot at. And so they have all these permits, and they're preparing for the stunts. And with this stuff being months, it's just now coming out, and they've had that information for months. It doesn't seem likely that it's like, it's going to be an overhaul, but they're, like Rodrigo said, they have certain building blocks in there. But it is interesting.
Look, if I'm a producer, I'm look, I've got Italy, whatever, and those are booked, and those are those.
Yeah.
So don't do me a favor. Don't change the location.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
unless we can substitute Spain for something else.
If I'm a producer, that's how I work. That's why I tell my rewriter, I'm going to look like on April 19th, or I'm supposed to be on this city in Italy, and this is supposed to go down. So do me a favor. Don't fucking make it Russia or whatever, Like, like that's just common sense. So there's probably some of that. Yeah. I mean, and who knows what he's going to do with it. I mean, I'm not going to say that this is the nightmare for Hollywood. This is what happens a lot of times, where they go like, there are teams waiting around for writers to give them shit, and they haven't had the prep time to do it. And this is why you get in these situations with bad movies, because compressed timelines and all this shit, that this is what happens. And it's big things that happen. And then it's like, rather than the story driving it, it's all this other bullshit, you know?
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately what happens. So like, maybe what happens, I'm just going to throw like an imaginary situation, like, Italy, the city, this is supposed to happen here. and we've got this book, so make this work. But maybe the writer has a better idea that would work somewhere else and be something different. But because he's sort of beholden to that, it's just, unfortunately, that's how it works, Right. And so it's like these kinds of like compromises that kind of fuck up Hollywood productions. I mean, I guess it's just hard, but they're driven by a lot of money and a lot of things that are going on and a lot of logistics, and it's a big fucking ship, and it's hard.
Yeah,
so,
no, for sure. I think if I could say two things that would put any of our listeners, any Bond fans at ease from just off of this conversation, beyond the broad strokes of like who's involved and all that kind of thing, it would be that as great as you are, Rodrigo, I'm pretty sure the people working on Bond 25 did not hear about this from the playlist. Sure, they've been prepared for this for quite a while now. Like, there isn't like a panic going on at Eon right now where they're like, oh, we don't know what's going on. We just got this. Like, I'm sure they've been, just because we found out now doesn't mean that they have not been prepared.
Eon's been trying to get him on board for months.
Exactly,
so knows that that's everybody who's working on the film, or at least the main producers and all this stuff know that that's in the wind. And then it's a matter of like waiting around to see like, is this guy going to do it or not? And what would have really fucking been a bad situation for them and would have really put this film in jeopardy is if Scott's movies was not very good and didn't get sold and had a poor reception, and he probably thought, shit, I need to go back to the editing room. I need to rethink this. I need time. And then he would have probably said, like, look, no, I got a problem. So I can't do this. And they would have to look for somebody else. And then maybe they wouldn't have found someone in time. And maybe then they would have had push it back even further. And maybe the date would have been further, and maybe the start date gets put, you know what I mean? Like there's just
exactly. Yeah. And I guess the second thing I would say would be that this kind of thing happens a lot. Just because it isn't ideal, it does happen a lot. And it happens with these kinds of movies. Like, I mean, we were talking about, you mentioned Mission Impossible before. We hear stories of like, I mean, Christopher McQuarrie himself said he was writing Fallout on the set of Fallout. Yeah. And he was brought in to do rewrites for Ghost Protocol. And that's how he sort of got involved with the franchise. And those movies turned out great. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it really, just because it's an unfavorable situation does not mean the production is doomed, I would say.
Totally.
Doesn't mean it'll be good, but it doesn't mean it's doomed. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the one thing that kind of drives me crazy either way, where people will be like, oh, they're doing reshoots. And then someone will say oh, that's terrible. And they'll be like, no, because Mission Impossible did reshoots and it turned out great, so reshoots don't mean anything. It's like, no, every fucking project is totally different. Reshoots could mean disaster on one film, and reshoots could mean this movie's going to be even fucking better by the time it gets to the screen.
Exactly.
There's always people sort of like with their confirmation bias trying to use information to kind of like pivot, like lean into
narrative,
whatever whatever narrative that they're trying to push. So I've seen people lots of times being like, oh, reshoots don't matter because, 2 movies I liked had great reshoots and they turned out great. So then everything else, therefore, it's like, no, it's like,
well, like reshoots are the worst thing ever because Suicide Squad had reshoots.
Yeah. Everyone goes back to Suicide Squad and Justice League. Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, like a lot of it is just like a lot of people out there on the internet is just like kind of amateur hour and don't understand anything. They don't have a concept of it. I'm sorry, it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
It is true. Yeah.
They don't understand any of the stuff. They don't understand the logistics. They don't know how it works. And then they just pick and choose a narrative of whatever works for they want. And it's like every film is fucking different. Look, like you could say that the timeline for Mission Impossible and McQuarrie working on that and the circumstances were exactly the same of what Scott C. Burns is doing here. And one could still be great and one could still be awful. Like it just does not. There's no one-to-one correlation there. It could have been like the same writer, the same directors. Like every situation, everything is different. Like it's just I don't know. It's like I don't know to stress that. Like every project is like it's like having a baby. Every baby is different. Like my boy, I'm going to go with a weird analogy. My wife is a birth doula. She every birth she has is completely fucking different. She's trained to know everything you could possibly know about a birth and how it goes down and every single. It doesn't matter. You throw out your fucking plans every single time. It's just different. No. It's like never is anything the same twice. Sure, it's familiar and there's certain things that are overlap and you become knowledgeable. But it's like there's film is essentially. I mean, Steven Soderbergh calls it as problem solving because there's a new single problem every single day. He doesn't call it directing. He's just like, how do I solve problems to get on with my day? Because there's just a zillion variables of everything. It could be a variable of like I'm about to shoot this pivotal scene. And I'll give you an example, like Roma, like the new Alfonso Cuarón movie. There's a scene where he's got this big, I'm not going to go on too long, but there's this sort of crowd riot scene, and the camera does all this crazy stuff in it. And he only had one day to shoot it. And that scene was almost destroyed because his whatever camera setup rig wasn't working and it wouldn't stay stable. And he wasn't sure if he would be able to do it. And I think he got like 2 takes out of the like 12 that he was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And he was panicked and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like you have the greatest thing in the whole world, but just there's so many different factors that these things happen. It's just very, very unpredictable and a zillion variables every day, which is why filmmaking is just so fucking tough.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing to take away from this is that it's only going to be pushed back 2 months. It's not like it's being pushed back
at least right now.
6 months, an entire year, or whatever. It's just Canceled. 2 months. So, like, they may be doing a complete overhaul, which it seems that they are, but core ideas are still there, and they like what they have. And the most important thing is that they're taking the time to get it right, because in my mind, this signifies that they want to give Daniel Craig the best possible send-off they can. On top of all these other shenanigans, getting a film out on time, dealing with whatever, they want to make sure that it's right. And
I'm glad they're self-aware of the issues, because it seemed like, again, going back through those Spectre emails, it seemed like there were glaring issues with that film that no one working on it was aware of, and they kept so I'm glad that they've at least learned to show some level of self-awareness and a little humility, and know that like maybe we need to take things a little more cautiously with the script, because the script for a Bond film, while it's not like a script-heavy franchise, is still important. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad that they're at least trying to
totally. At the same time, like this whole I don't know, people in Nolan we trust and Scott C. Burns we trust. Look, they were looking down the barrel of a gun. I don't care what the situation is. Yeah. Their backs are against the wall right now. I wouldn't say panic, but I would say their backs are against the wall, and I would say this is probably politely not an ideal situation. And yeah, people try and do all kinds of things where they try and say it's a complete disaster, or they try and say, no, hey, they're on it. They got the triage and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But maybe the analogy is that it is triage and something's bleeding. And
for sure. Yeah, I believe that.
And if that's the case, it would be rather than like, how would you say that, like, well, Griffin's good. He's standing, he's right here, right next to me. But Rodrigo, well, he's in the hospital right now and he's bleeding right now. And
right. Yeah. Like he was shot, but he's at the hospital. Right?
Yeah, right. So
it's a great surgeon. He's got an amazing surgeon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's one of the best. He saved so many lives.
Yeah. No,
so
absolutely.
Would you say in that situation? I mean, maybe that's also a slight exaggeration, but you wouldn't say if that was the situation, you probably wouldn't go like, oh, well, he's still one of the greatest surgeons in the world. Everything's fine.
Oh,
right?
yeah, no, absolutely.
You'd say I have a reason to be hopeful, but not a great situation.
That's basically what I'm saying. Like, you would be concerned, and I think concern is valid here.
Yeah, and that's just to kind of put a footnote on this topic. I think there is cause for concern. There's also cause to be optimistic, bringing in someone like Burns. Them, not necessarily rushing into production and trying to iron out the story the best they can. So it's like there's a mixture of both, but I agree with you. I wouldn't hit the panic button yet. Hopefully no other production issues come up with this, though.
Yeah,
it's not ideal, but a lot of movies have, like, like the whole Bourne Supremacy movie was like made, or sorry, the Ultimatum was essentially made like on set.
Yeah,
Macquarie has like essentially made one of the Mission Impossible movies while practically on set. So sometimes, and it can be done,
Sure.
And that energy can be positive. You can make a lot of incredible films can come out of it. A lot of fucking disastrous films comes out of it. You just, you don't know. I'll say this, he's a fucking great writer, and Fukunaga is an incredible director too. So that's quite the force. The two of them, personally, whatever they were working on, be it Bond or anything, I would, and if I was a fan and I was awaiting it, I would have liked them to have gotten together and been working on it like in regular, in regular development rather than at the limit. But so such is life sometimes,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a great pairing. There is no doubt the quality of work between the two of them. That's something to be optimistic about. At the very
I think
least.
fans need to just like sort of take that on board, be a little cautious, be a little like sort of like, concerned but not overly like panicky, and maybe just maybe file this away. Was that, sorry?
You got 2 Americans too.
Oh wow! Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Wow,
that is an interesting
the Americans
point.
to the rescue.
Yes, look at that. Oh Jesus!
But I mean, I hate to admit it as much as anyone. But what I would say is like sort of file this away under. If the movie's bad, we can look back on this and go, oh yeah, that's why that may be. But we don't know until we see the movie. Essentially, the movie's coming out. There's no stopping it now. Just sit back, let the film be made. If it's shit, it's shit. We've got 24 others to watch. Like just. Everyone needs to take a chill pill.
Yeah, absolutely. At
the same time, and I'm not a huge fan like you guys, but I would be bummed if the last Daniel Craig movie like stinks.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think Spectre's pretty bad.
And
I think it shows. And all of the rewriting and all the junk, that it's just a clunky, pretty mediocre movie.
Yeah.
Whereas the movie before it was fucking great. Mm-hmm. And so it would be really nice to see, Daniel Craig go out on this really high note.
I'm sure that's weighing on him too. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's aware that Spectre was not well received. I'm sure he's thinking about it.
Yeah. Before we finish up with the news segment, Rodrigo, I want to quickly touch on the Danny Boyle script, just for fun. It doesn't really pertain to anything, but there's been a lot of people circulating stuff about the Danny Boyle version of this story that was thrown away. I know you mentioned it a bit in your article, and so it seemed that one of the bones of contention in there was the killing of Bond at the end of the film, which for me personally I would not have liked, and I'm glad that they're not going with that idea. But I think, Brody, you read up on this a little bit, and you took a look at some of the other maybe true, maybe not true bits that were kind of pulled from the Boyle script. So if you want to elaborate on those, and then I kind of just want to get everyone's take on this whole thing.
Of course, yeah. No, I mean, I read some stuff on Twitter, right, as one does, and I found like some people were talking about a couple of different things that I couldn't find a source for. I found one on MI6 HQ that I guess that was the source, but they didn't. They reference like sort of an anonymous source they don't really give any context for. Sure. But essentially they were saying that apparently in the Boyle script, in addition to Bond dying, there was this idea that Bond would be captured by the villain for an extended period of time in the film, like similar to something like Goldfinger. Mm-hmm. And some people have said that in terms of tone, it was more akin to a Western, and it dealt with like Me Too elements. Although I could not cite a source for that, I've heard people talking about it. Part of me thinks that like the whole Western thing ties into the similarities that killing Bond off has to Logan. I think people have just sort of extrapolated information there where there is no information. But I'm only saying that because I don't have any credible source here for this. But that's what I'm hearing. So what does everyone think of that?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say toss it to Rodrigo because I mean you know the current ending, and I guess in your article you kind of allude to this a little bit, but it kind of brings credence to the idea that Boyle wanted to kill off the character and Craig and Eon were not about it.
I don't necessarily know, and I have to be a little bit careful here, but I think that was there at some point. I don't know if it's the exact reason that. Because I don't know that the whole. I can't pretend that I know why Danny Boyle left that, and I've heard the same rumors that you have. But sure. I think there's certainly elements to that there. Personally, I think that's a really cool idea. But then again, maybe it feels too much like Logan, which I hadn't thought. I do like the idea of like the last ride, the last journey. Yeah, I guess maybe the only reason you wouldn't want to do it is because it would maybe ring too closely to Logan. But otherwise, I honestly think it's a great idea.
Yeah, the whole Western feel, and
because it's like his last one. So
sure, yeah.
I think that could be a cool idea, and I think the Western stuff is probably extrapolation too, and like probably people like putting. I mean, it ends up happening with a lot of these things. You get little tidbits and stuff like that, and people try and form them into greater things. And I mean, it happens all the time. I mean,
we saw that with a rumor. People were rumoring that Emma Stone was going to be in the film. Yeah, likely because Emma Stone just worked with Cary Fukunaga in Maniac. So, I mean, these things just sort of materialize sometimes.
Yeah, but that's also crazy. It's like just because like what is that based on? Is it based on
exactly?
anything, other than like.
I mean, Idris Elba could be in it for all we know based on his track record.
Yeah, Idris Elba was in one of his movies. Also that stuff sort of kind of also needs to be like weeded out and just discounted quickly, because it's like, if it doesn't have anything to do with reality, there's enough noise with any kind of project or whatever it is. It's like weed out. It would just be like if you're like a journalist or a cop. It's like, you work with facts and you work with this stuff, and then anything else that's like random speculation, or just throw that out. It has nothing to do with it. It just clouds issues, No,
for sure. I do agree with you. I think the only thing that really bugged me about that entire idea was the killing off of the character. But like other than that, I mean, him being captured, if approached right, could have been interesting. You could have gotten some intimate moments between him and the villain, kind of like what we got in Goldfinger. The whole Western thing, whether or not that was even remotely part of it or not. I do like that would be an interesting take on Bond.
In terms of tone, in terms of Bond tone, is kind of like the lone gunslinger kind of character. So
so it makes sense. Obviously, tackling Me Too stuff is very relevant, and I'd be interested to see a character like Bond.
I mean, Bond is definitely prime for that kind of to tackle that topic.
Absolutely. So like, there's stuff about that I like, but
I think the only thing with killing Bond that bothers me is that we basically, I mean, especially for especially for Skyfall, but even a little bit in Spectre, Bond has been dealing with his place in the world and his age and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
A lot lately, and I feel like maybe it would tie into those films, and it might be a nice way to extend the themes of those films. But at the same time, I do understand the yearning to sort of just say, okay, we've tackled that now, and now doesn't mean you can't have like a nice bit of conclusivity to Craig's tenure, but maybe focusing on his death might seem a little too like sort of humdrum, considering the sort of the subject matter that they've tackled in previous Craig outings. But
no, I think you bring up a great point. And with that, honestly, I think that puts the perfect conclusion on this news discussion here in Tomorrow Never Lies. Thank you, Rodrigo, for joining us for this part of the show. It was really great to hear your insight and to just kind of like hear you elaborate on a lot of the things that you brought up in your article, and obviously put to rest the fears that many Bond fans out there, I guess, were having when they heard this news.
Yeah, I mean, again, I would just stress that like people are going to want to say either or, and unfortunately, it's neither. I haven't put anything to rest. I don't think it's in a safe situation. I don't think it's in a terrible situation. I think it could shift back and forth, and people want to like codify things and put it into like a black and white terms. And that's not how it works, unfortunately. And I think information that comes out in the next few weeks will tell you more and more. If in a few weeks, like you're told that someone else comes out with a report that's been pushed again, that's probably not a good sign. If the release date gets pushed again, that's probably not a good sign. Sure, if the movie's pushed till like the start date of production isn't till June, that's not a great, you know what I mean? It's like it's more evidence for you to be able to like understand, you get a good picture of what's going on here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess I should kind of clarify what I meant, putting to rest the fact that this isn't out of the ordinary, it is, there are positive outcomes. There have been films that have gone through similar things where the outcome has been positive. There have been films who have gone through similar things where the outcome has been negative, but this
doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be
absolutely. It's not qualifying that it's.
I guess that's the one thing. It's like you'll see people online. They either want to do black or white. They want to say it's okay or it's going to be terrible, and it's like, no, I'm sorry, you just don't know, and you're going to have to live with a little bit of ambiguity and uncertainty, because that's where you're sort of at right now. You got to kind of wait and see what happens. If this movie starts in April and production is going and everything's happening, to me, that would be a very, very good sign.
Yeah.
It's like, this movie's up and it's shooting and you see set photos and everything's going. That's a very good sign. And again, maybe someone's going to say, great, everything's solved. But that's a good sign, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Like, and then it's like anything. Like, I don't know, if you followed like Rogue One, which I did really closely, like you could tell by every little piece of information coming out there that was a bit of a shit show. And that still turned out to be a pretty good movie.
Yeah, but I agree.
There was a lot of patchwork and a lot of people trying to put that thing together and make sure it landed properly, you know?
Yeah.
Like you got a big fucking 747 and you're flying and you're like rebuilding the wing while you're flying. That's pretty fucking dangerous, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's either going to fucking crash or it's going to land, or, you know what I mean? And some of these things fucking blow up in midair. But you've been doing it for long enough that it's not the first time that a plane's been rebuilt while in air.
Yeah.
And again, I don't, just to back up, like, so if anyone's like freaking out, it's like, no, because this plane has not even gotten off the ground.
Exactly.
It
hasn't even taken off. Yeah.
And they're lucky they changed the pilot before they took off rather than midair like Solo.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, but thank you again for coming on and kind of painting a clearer picture, if you will. And you brought some great insight into stuff that I think our listeners are going to really appreciate. So thank you.
Nuanced picture. That's what I'm going to say.
Yes, a nuanced picture. Absolutely.
There we go.
There we go.
Nuance doesn't go so well on Twitter. And limited character limit.
Yeah, with a nuanced picture with highs and lows and mediums and a lot of shit. Again, people are going to probably want to just try and put a fine point on it. And it's like, nope, sorry. It's like, you don't know.
Well, it's filmmaking, you know? Well,
I hope this thing works out, man. I hope your movie works out.
Thanks. Yeah, we do too.
Thank you for coming in this time of need.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I know more, I will definitely be out there and hopefully not get scooped by it. But yeah.
No, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you know,
we appreciate it.
You're welcome back anytime, especially if you have more information you can, share.
Please do.
Good stuff. Yeah.
All the best to 007, I guess.
Well, there you go, guys. That's going to conclude our news-centric episode of The Words Are Not Enough. As always, Mr. Brody Saravalli, my co-host, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so if you want to hear my personal thoughts on just any topic whatsoever, you can follow me at Brody Saravalli on Twitter. You can find that in the description. It's kind of a complicated last name. But if you want more Bond-centric content, you can actually follow this show on Twitter at TwainPod, TWANE pod. I curate some of the stuff on there. So if you want to talk Bond 25, you want to talk Tomorrow Never Dies, if you just feel like it, because I'm always down to talk about Tomorrow Never Dies, just hit me up. Sounds like fun. See you there.
Sounds like a bloody good time. That's for certain.
Let me tell you.
But what you should also do is wherever you find or wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure to head on over there, specifically the iTunes ones, and leave us a rating and a review. It greatly helps out the show, helps us get noticed, helps give us feedback as to what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what you want to see more of, and it's just a nice way for us to interact with you as well. Definitely, like Brody said, be sure to hit up the Twitter account. He's very active on there and whatnot. And if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the Men vs. Movies channel for more movie-related content that doesn't necessarily pertain to Bond. Excuse me. Jeez, all over the place here. But as always, guys, if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can always give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right. That's going to do it for this episode number 21 of The Words Are Not Enough. And until next time, take care.